Hello, my friend. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to this podcast. And oh, do I have a treat for you? I have one of my dear, dear friends on the podcast today, and I just adore her. We connected several years ago, and I swear it was like friendship at first Zoom call. And I'm so excited that she is here today. Allie, thank you for being here.
Amanda, I am so excited to join you. This is going to be fun.
It is. And, I swear one of these days I'm going to have like a segment or maybe a whole other podcast called Before We Hit Record. Because I swear all I want to do is be like, before we hit record, we talked about this thing.
Yes.
And that definitely happened to us because we just jumped on here and started chatting like the friends we are. So I'm just excited for everyone else to get in on this fun conversation that we get to have today.
Yeah, totally. Our Voxer channel, by the way, is like full of gold nuggets. So I hope that everybody listening today, like this is sort of a sneak peek of like business strategy, life stuff that Amanda and I talk about all the time.
It's so true. I swear the Voxer chat between us is so fun. And the amount of times that we're like, sorry, I'm out of breath. I'm on a walk.
Yes, movement and business strategy is a theme there for sure.
Yes, I love it. And so everyone is now like, oh, these are just two friends talking on a podcast, which is exactly what I want it to feel like.
Mm-hmm.
But some people might not know you yet. So would you tell everyone a little bit about you? And I always invite people to share maybe your personality type or anything like that to give a sense of not just your title, but who you are as a person.
Yeah, totally. So I'm Allie. I am the founder of Operations Agency and Master Maternity Leave. I've been a business owner for almost 10 years, and I am the systems gal. I love when things work well. I love when business feels crisp. I love when it feels like a source of stability and not stress. So I've spent the better part of my career really optimizing companies for scale, for life, right? Because sometimes we forget that our business does serve our life and not the other way around, which is a lot of what I've staked the latter half of my career in, is making sure that we've got that balance that supports us as a human being, our family, our aspirations, and of course, the rest that we want to take. I am a huge fan of Sudoku puzzles. I love solving problems. Most days, you'll find me there to kind of wind down from work. I have two sons who are 17 months apart. They're 5 and 3, who I just absolutely adore. And my husband is like totally my unpaid business coach. I should probably put him on salary at some point. I just run down in the kitchen like, Steve, I've got this idea. And thankfully he doesn't gaslight me like ChatGPT does, where he doesn't tell me every single idea I have is amazing, which is exactly the type of relationship I personally need. But yeah, I super love optimizing, which feels, I think, sometimes like a chore to some business owners. So I always say like partnerships in that direction for big visionaries have always been my exciting.
I can agree with everything that you just said about you loving systems and processes and helping people, including myself, get out of the dang weeds when we have so many things swirling. And that's what, we referenced our Voxer chat. And it's like that I'm so lucky to have you as a friend and business coach and supporter in life and all of these things that I can just kind of tap on your shoulder and be like, well, I've got all this stuff happening and I don't know how to get out of it. And I think we need that. We need those people in our lives. And I'm thankful that you found that calling of yours and followed that and now help people do that, because you have such a gift with seeing through that and seeing someone is swirling, raising my hand, and you're like, do these 3 things, Amanda, and also take a nap. And you're going to feel much, much better.
Yeah. Thank you, first of all, for saying those kind things. And anyone who's listening, I think it's tough sometimes, and I resonate with this too. Like, I am not immune from systems challenges in my business. I'm not immune to the overwhelm sometimes with which comes with all the things you could do and the thing you should do next. I still sometimes find myself there, in different seasons of life. And so I think sometimes where business becomes less freedom and more overwhelming is sort of in that gray area of all the things you could do. You log onto Instagram, you spend time on LinkedIn, you're getting someone's emails from their email list, and something seems to be working really well for them. And you start to analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis, strike that, reverse it. You start to think about all the things you could be implementing. And then not only do you feel overwhelmed with all the options, but then you feel bad that you haven't been taking action on something or thinking about something. So it ends up in this sort of like really horrible cycle of doing things that might work for your business, feeling like you don't know if it's the next thing. And then operationally speaking, right, then there's sort of like a stalemate and no decisions get made. And so I think when it comes to really feeling like you've got some momentum or you can make some great decisions in your business, first and foremost, I think comes with vision and clarity on that vision, right? So what am I doing? Where do I want to go? How is this looking to me? And then the second piece is, how do I want to feel like every day? And I think a lot of us, especially female entrepreneurs, sometimes I feel like when I worked with male entrepreneurs, they have more like stamina toward the goal, right? Like sometimes there's just a lot of fast moving, there's a lot of, quick pace. And females, I feel like we work in, quick sprints and then we need to take a second. And then we work in quick sprints and then we need to take a second. And I think understanding your vision and also how you want to feel every day, or at least the majority of your days, is going to be really important, because I think a lot of folks don't ask themselves, how do I want to feel? What does this do for my personal life? What does this do for my personal bank account? We shouldn't be ashamed to have a vision for making the world better with our business and also allowing it to pour into our personal life very positively. We shouldn't have to sacrifice ourselves on the altar of our business. And sometimes business owners see that a little bit too late. I've seen a lot of companies, folks who hit burnout, people who hit operational walls in the business, that they feel like they need to taper things down or shut everything down entirely, or they realize at a time where they feel like they've been burning the candle at both ends in the middle for too long. And then those decisions, right, that seem small, what's the next step? What strategy should I implement? They feel heavier because we're tired. Like much heavier.
Yes. Yeah. I feel that to my core, and I think, we're recording this and this will be released towards the end of the year. So this is when people, not that you can't apply all of what we're going to say at any time of the year. So if you're listening in the future, but if you're at the end of the year, oftentimes, and me as the goal lady over here, we have a lot of feelings towards the end of the year about not reaching goals. And so I'm feeling invited to talk about this right now because it feels heavy for a lot of people. And my mission and what I feel like I am called to do is like to help people not feel like they failed when it comes to their goals. And like that's the problem I'm trying to solve. And that's the thing that I try and help as many people do. And I've realized that I've asked that question that you ask, which is probably why we love being friends and we teach very similar. Even though we're teaching different things, we have that same common question of, how do you want to feel? Because I ask people, how do you want to feel as you're pursuing this goal? And when we get to I got to that question, I'm my winding road here. I got to that question because I saw so many people get to the end of the year, feel as though they failed just because they didn't get 100% to their goal. They may have gotten to like 80 or 90%. Maybe some of them got to 50%, but they made progress, but they still felt like they failed. And I think that heaviness is so much of what we're talking about, is like it's making decisions about what next year looks like and what should I cut, what should I keep, all of those things that we're leading into. And maybe I'll follow this episode with something of like a reflection exercise or something of like, how do we not let those feelings and decisions feel so heavy? So how do you help people through that?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's just actually showing up as the person that can make those decisions. So, I mean, this sounds very basic, but a lot of us do in difficult times in our business and life, let some basic habits fall off. So it's like sleeping enough, it's drinking enough water, it's eating healthy meals throughout the day, it's moving your body. I was very tempted when I wrote my first book to write another book called Operations U.0, because I think when you embrace the like the systems that your body needs and those rhythms inside. And I mean, I'm even talking, I used to believe that cycle calendaring was completely outside of like what I needed to do in my business. And as a female entrepreneur in the last 2 years, I've really started using my cycle to tell me exactly when I'm going to have high moments, when I'm going to feel like I just want to sit with a spreadsheet in my pajamas and like my hair up on the top of my head. Like those are times, and there are things in the business that need that type of attention. Like I am way better on a spreadsheet when I don't have any calls for the day and I can just be there for an amount of time that doesn't matter because I know I don't have any commitments. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think when we meet these types of decisions, we need to know when our best self is there to meet that decision. And I think for us, sometimes it really does take getting to know ourselves, getting to know our working style, really understanding. I love when you are working with folks to pursue goals that you really lean into their personality and how they are best supported. And I think as an entrepreneur, we really, really do owe it to ourselves to get to know who we are and be really, really real about that. Because the more we overpromise, underdeliver, or we overcommit ourselves and underperform, that's what that voice in our head is saying. You had this goal and you didn't do it, or you made this promise and you didn't deliver. And that's the voice inside of our head that consistently is telling us that we are failing. And then it doesn't bring our best selves to some of these decisions. So I actually think starting there makes the most sense. And then I think James Clear says, I'm pretty sure he does, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And I think if we make sure our systems in our business, our routine in our day, the types of work that we're approaching, if that can hold us through times where we don't feel like showing up, where things are getting really difficult, when we feel like we should be making more progress than we actually are in our business, in our life, like wherever this shows up for you, having something tangible there to say, okay, yes, I only made it 80% of the way to my goal this year, but I showed up 80% of the time too, even when I didn't feel like it, that is a massive win.
That's a huge win. I just want to like reiterate that and say it one more time. It's showing up even when you don't feel like it is a sign that you're following the right thing for you. Because I think a lot of people get in that like, well, it wasn't the right goal, or it was hard and so it wasn't the right fit for me, or whatever. We get in our mind about a lot of things. And I think that's a huge sign is if you're showing up even when it's hard, dang, you're on the right track. It's not going to be easy because no one listening to this podcast is not an ambitious person. It's like we're all ambitious, we're all driven. And you and I talk about this all the time. We set the bar so dang high that it's nearly impossible to hit it so much, but it that's just what we do. And we need to recognize when we're reflecting on that, it's really great that we made it to 80%. So that's really good.
Yeah, it is. And I think maybe Steve Jobs, another like little quotable that I personally love about like goals and operations is he says most people overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can do in 10. And so I love that reframe of it's an invitation to extend your time horizon.
Yeah.
And also just get clear on what that 10-year, and it doesn't have to be 10, it can be 5, it can be 3, but getting clear on what the extended vision is for you, I think holds us in this like, okay, at least if we didn't get 100% to where we thought in 1 year or 6 months or 3 months or whatever the shorter time horizon is, I know I'm 80% farther to this particular vision that I'm holding that feels like unstoppable, right? Like I know I need this in my life. I'm pursuing this in my life. That to me has been really helpful in years, right? Where maybe I don't hit everything across the board. There are of course years, right, where you crush it and things move forward smoothly, and that is all the well. And I think especially for high performers, especially for business owners, we almost expect that the baton or the thing is going to be moved farther and farther. Like if we achieve something amazing 1 year, then next year, if we don't rinse and repeat that, then we're somehow failing.
I feel that.
I know. I remember the year we launched the book, and that was the year we connected, Amanda, right? Because we launched our books around the same time. And I loved what you said, like Zoom friends from day one.
It was day one for sure.
I remember though in 24, it was such a personal year for me. But the next year after I launched the book, there were so many thoughts of like, what's my big goal this year?
Yes.
What's the big move I'm making in my business? What's the big strategic thing? And I remember my husband looking at me at one point and being like, Allie, just because you launched a book last year doesn't mean you need to launch a book this year or do the same things. And we actually had a better revenue year in 24 than we had in 23. So I was like, okay, it's not always linear. So I think for anybody listening who's like the perpetual achiever, I would say like I sort of identify in that bucket where I get almost competitive with myself from time to time. And it's so unfair. There are years where you just need to like let the soil rest. Like, you
Oh,
know what I mean?
100%. And I'll say it's so interesting us going back to the book days that the year after, like, so publishing in 2023, 20,
Mm-hmm.
yes, 2023.
23.
So 24 was actually lower for me
Mm.
because if you remember, if we rewind the tapes, it was when I wrote my book that I decided to pivot my entire business.
Yeah.
And I shut down a membership, which I still shout out to everyone who's in that membership. I loved hosting that membership, but I knew that the next, to your point of like the super future, like Amanda today, I didn't need that particular membership to get me to where I wanted to go today.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember having so many feelings to see a massive revenue drop in from one year to the next. And
Mm-hmm.
I had launched the book. So it was like, this is uncomfortable. That was a whirlwind of emotions for sure. So,
Yeah, you know, I think you have a clear vision though. And so that's the important piece, right? Of like where you want to go. And I mean, I'll just pull the curtain. We had a year like that this year. So operations agency, my consultancy, I wound down all of my one-to-one work. We trimmed our team and our revenue. So like all the projects we were working on, everything decreased by 75% this year.
and I just, for the person listening, like I just need them to like understand that they are not alone because I know that the people think, at least the conversations I hear on the other side when I'm on the screen coaching someone or when I'm talking to someone at an event when I'm speaking or something, there is so much feelings, emotions, shame, all of that when it comes to I was building something and then it went down. And I experienced it, you're experiencing it, like we all experience it. And I think it's like, I don't think there's a lack of people saying that that's normal. Because I do think that entrepreneurs do say that. They're like, oh, yeah, it's up and down. You can't, like, I hear that message. I don't know about you. I just thought maybe I'll be different. I don't know.
You know, it's interesting. I think there's a couple of things to unpack here. So like operationally speaking, we made decisions to pivot who we're working with and what we were giving them. So for us, like I leaned more into consulting on the operations side. You can still hire me to support in like getting some clarity behind the scenes of your business, of your role, like where you may be inefficient or reluctantly pulled back into the day to day. Like I still do that. The thing I don't do is I don't build out cumbersome operating systems. I don't do Salesforce implementation. I don't do HubSpot implementation. We used to do that. We were a true blue agency. And so I think when you shift your offerings or you do less of something, like net less of something, and you decide, so like when you shut down your membership, that was in service of where you wanted to take the business. And same thing with me. I was realizing that managing an implementation team of 18 was taking from my ability to fully be present emotionally and with a lot of great resources for what I'm building at Master Maternity Leave. And so I made that decision. It was something for me because I still wanted to keep forward facing time with my kids. I knew that that was my number one thing. So I either said I need to trim back from my family time to focus on Master Maternity Leave, or I need to shut this other stuff down. And so I think what we're talking about here, I think is more in our heads than it is in the logistics on paper, because we all have an amount of time we either want to work or need to work during the day. We have an amount of money that we need to bring into our home to support our families. I'm the sole breadwinner as of the recording recording of this podcast, my husband's going to go back to work, which is an exciting new season for
It
us
is.
that I super don't know what it's going to hold. But for the last 5 years, I've been the person who's responsible for the way that we are able to live our life. And so there's some very real challenge with that, right? Logistically speaking, monetarily speaking. So when you start to put it all down on paper, I believe wholeheartedly that everything is figure outable, like Marie Forleo says. But like, we have to think about like the why, right? The why is I really want to serve women planning maternity leave. I really want to support business owners being able to create more predictable businesses and be more present with their family. And the agency piece of what I did always sort of felt like it was getting in the way. And maybe do I return to agency work in the future? Who knows? But at the time, it felt like the decision that was right for me. And I think the stories I told myself in my head of looking at the year over year breakdown and seeing that we took a 75% increase, I can see that number and tell myself all the negative stories about the trajectory of my business or my ability to handle revenue. But I'll tell you what, we're probably going to be the most profitable this year that we've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Love
paying
that.
myself the most that I've ever paid myself. And so I think overall, the decisions that we've made inside of the business, like, yes, we can see this downward trajectory, but I think every business is different. And if we're only in service of growth or top line revenue, those are the clients who've come to me over the years who have felt the most burnt out, the most disconnected from their work. Their operations and their team have felt the most frazzled, is because we don't always often remember like why we're building this thing. And sometimes being more connected with the vision of the business helps us understand whether we need to trim stuff down and calm everything and get it tightened up before we explode again, or whether we need to make a few tweaks while we're flying the plane and get some folks into the right areas, get some systems built to just match pace and momentum. But I think it's so hard because, like we were talking about before, looking outside of ourselves, looking on Instagram, looking on LinkedIn, being part of other people's communities, you see what other people are building and it may be perfect for them. Mm-hmm. But we need to figure out what feels like it's the best for us.
What a perfect time. Again, we're recording this towards the end of the year. And what a perfect time to spend that time reflecting and thinking forward. And so thinking about this, like you're helping us craft this entry level into like not entry level, but like entering into this reflection phase, which I'll have to I'll do another episode on like a reflection exercise that will pull this one in, and starting with that vision of where do you want it to go? And sometimes that feels really overwhelming for people. And I just want to remind everyone it can change and it's okay to change. So if you pick something now, it's all right to change later. But that's this idea of reflection. And so we're inviting people now to take some time to pause and reflect before setting new goals and before looking at the strategy that they want to go full in on next year or whenever they're listening to this. However, that invites the question that you are miraculously wonderful at, which is helping people take a leave. Very specifically, you help people with maternity leave. But I will say several years ago, I used your system to take a month off when I had to have surgery and I knew I could not work for 1 month. And I still use your system when I'm going to be off for 2 weeks. And when I'm thinking about how to onboard someone, like all your systems go all across. So yes, we are pulling from master maternity leave, which I highly, highly, highly recommend. If you are expecting a kiddo, please get all the resources from Allie for this because it's amazing what you've put together. But even if you're not expecting a maternity leave for whatever, or you're planning something else, you can still apply these processes. So how do you prep people to truly step back and not panic when they come back?
Yeah. I think time off has eluded most entrepreneurs and business owners for quite some time. I also think it's one of the leading causes of burnout, disconnection with family, disconnection with self, is when we're running, a mile a minute for a lot of years, we are not robots. One of the reasons I wrote my book in 2023, it's called The Sabbatical Method, How to Leverage Time Off.
So good.
It's amazing. And really what I pose is sort of two things, right? First and foremost, that rest is strategic if you're a business owner, right? Pulling yourself out of the business can be this really incredible strategic opportunity. I believe that about maternity leave. I believe it about any sort of time off. And we can use the sabbatical as a forcing function to improve our operations, right? How can it need less of us as we return back into the business? And honestly, it's where I've had my flag firmly planted since 2023. I really do want business owners to have better relationship with their business. And honestly, relationships are strengthened most often. Desire is created in separation. And so I actually believe wholeheartedly that like spending time away from your business allows you to get clearer on how it supports your life, right? I think it is easier for us to be in gratitude for our business if we can remove ourselves from it. It's easier for us to see some of the really simple shifts and changes that we can make that have a great impact. It can also help us determine relationships with teammates, right? How are people holding their weight? Are they fully trained? Are they fully understanding of what we're doing? And they can kind of keep momentum, sort of while you're gone. So I think the very first thing to really help you plan some sort of time away from the business is actually to believe that it's possible, whether you've taken off before and you've come back to, an absolute fire, whether you've, come back early because you felt like you could take a week off, but then you actually couldn't. So you need to jump on a meeting midweek inside of a hotel room. Like, been there,
Right.
had to do it. And so I think like first and foremost, believing that it's possible and just sort of embracing the time away. And here's what not to do. Don't just take 90 days off from the business and be like, my team can figure it out. One of my coaches calls that a hand grenade. You just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
What you want to do is you want to really figure out like, where am I at right now? So again, just getting really clear and saying, okay, I've been unable to take a full weekend off for the last year, right? That's where you're at. That's where you're starting. And I think really thinking about that as sort of the pin, right? That kind of line in the sand of being like, okay, well, I'm not a robot. I can't work every single weekend and every single night. I can't leave it all out on the line every single week. And that's just going to contribute to you feeling like what we talked about before, that kind of shell of yourself who can't really make these full decisions for what's next inside of the business. One of the stories I told inside of the sabbatical method is a gentleman who had summited Everest several times. And one of the things he said was that folks who are actually unable to summit, the leading cause is lack of rest. Lack of rest. And of course, it leads, but his argument was, he was like, well, it leads to other stuff. If you don't take the time and rest and get acclimated to the altitude, then you're more likely to get sick or you're more likely to get hurt. And I thought that was really, really interesting because it's not technically the thing, right, that stopped them from summiting Everest. I think we externalize stuff too much, right? Like we get a diagnosis or we feel like we've hit burnout or we've got depression. And the slew of things for entrepreneurs is actually wild. The fact that we all agree that these are symptoms we could possibly actually be experiencing as a result of being a business owner. But I think the safeguard for that, we talked about it, right? Taking care of yourself, taking ample time off. And I think the strategic piece of all of this is like getting out of the weeds of the business and being able to hold space for that clarity, that reflection, that time. So I love how timely this is, because if you're moving into December thinking, I haven't hit my goals, I feel like I left it all out on the field again another year and I've got nothing to show for it, or I'm feeling like I am just like missing time with my family, I haven't slept a full night, or I have only worked weekends and full days. Like, it's just so wild. If you find yourself kind of fumbling over the finish line this year, this might be something that could be super beneficial for you, is to just think about, okay, what is my role in the business and how does the business operate around me, and how can I get myself out of a lot of the deliverables that are happening inside of the day-to-day.
This is good. I want to come back to that, but I have to tell you that you just said something that I've never heard you say before that hit me real hard in a good way. And it's the relationship with a business. And I've never thought about it of like how I think about like my relationship with Michael. Like, of course we miss each other when we're away, and we're so grateful for each other more when we're away from each other and so excited to come back. Why the heck have I not thought about that with my business? Like that makes it even easier to take a break, because it's like, oh, I'll come back rested. I'll come back with more gratitude for this thing that I have built, and so many things. So thank you for that nugget, because that is a beautiful way of saying that. And I'm sure other people thought of it as well. But coming back to what you ended with there, which was taking yourself out of some of the deliverables. And I know that there are people listening that are about to say, but I don't have money to hire a team. So I just want to nip that real quick and talk about that, of like, what does someone do, even if, whether or not they want to have a team in the future or not, it's how can a solopreneur or someone with contractors or something in that in between stage do that?
Yeah. I have a specific program at Master Maternity Leave dedicated to solo entrepreneurs. So it's called the Solo Method. And I've actually talked about this quite a bit because I think when folks who work for themselves, they need this better relationship with their business, they need operations, but they're still all the ones who are pushing the buttons and pulling the levers, right? And so when we think about this, what I often like to do, especially for like my service providers, the majority of people who come to me are offering some kind of service and they're like, it's just me and I got hands on people or I don't make money, right? And I fully appreciate that. I think often what this invites, like time away from the business and just the refinement of operations, is at the center of most service based businesses and even product based businesses is your customer experience, right? It is the thing that you're delivering, the step by step process. And I think a lot of us, especially if we're solo, like I did this for a lot of years, before I had my first son, it was just me. I was fractional and I was like, cool, got a list of stuff to knock out today. And I'm going to knock all that stuff out. And then I'm going to send my invoices for my retainers and round it goes. Right. So I think when we really invite our clients into more of a process driven type of experience with us, and that can include like higher ticket packages, more annual, like versus monthly type of packages, we can really start to lean into more predictability in the business from like a revenue and delivery side. I also am a huge fan of working with service providers to anchor some additional offers into their client journey that don't rely a ton on their time. I was working with an agency a few years ago who came to me and they were like, Allie, I am hemorrhaging cash and I don't know what's going on. And he came to me because his wife had gotten this great opportunity in London at this fellowship. And she and him were going to move from the US into London. And he was like, I really want to support my wife, but my business is like eating me for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. And I'm not profitable and I don't know what the deal is. So we came in and did an assessment. He was doing SEO services at the time. We realized with just some, pop the hood and take a look behind the scenes that he was 30% overutilized in his services across the board. He had 3 packages. So that meant he was losing 30% of whatever was being paid to him, which is not what you want. So his gut was right. The numbers were right from his accounting firm. And he was like, I don't know what's happening operationally. And so generally speaking, they were just spending more time on accounts than he could afford. And so what we did was we redid his packages. We made 2 options, not 3. And one was more expensive and had more deliverables, more driven by process and, his client journey, and his team was very involved. And then his lower end package, like the other one, was cheaper on paper than all the other packages that he'd offered. And it was very low touch and like asynchronous with him in terms of strategy and those types of things. And so his clients either saw a deal, right? They could get some support for a smaller amount, or they saw a partnership, right? They were like, cool, you're going to come in and you're really going to partner with me on this. And the prices reflect that. So I think for my solos, I take a really similar approach where I'm like, cool, where can we upgrade this experience, give people more of a process, give you a little bit more of a runway to actually fulfill on the things we're looking at for a top tier price. And then where can we just find some leverage in the cracks of asynchronous connection, right? Where can we use our process, give them some self-guided tools? I'm a huge Voxer fan. So like, where can we get people set up on something like Voxer to get their questions answered, to feel like we're always with them, but I can answer my Voxers at 6:45 in the morning while I'm in my bed drinking my coffee. Like that feels very, very doable for a lot of solopreneurs. And honestly, I think a lot of clients, especially like my work in the solo method with all of my ladies planning maternity leave, with my one-to-one, services inside of operations agency, most often solopreneurs don't do this type of work because they don't think that it's going to be beneficial to them until they have a team. But it's actually super beneficial to do ahead of time because you could go out of office almost instantly at any given point. Whether one of my clients says you hit the lottery and move to Ibiza,
Yes.
a lot of folks say get hit by a bus. I like the Ibiza one
I do
better
too.
personally. But if you hit the lottery and move to Ibiza and you still want to keep your business, for
Right.
whatever reason, you can go ahead and just hand that off to somebody, or you can communicate easily with your clients. And it feels like you've done all the thinking ahead of time for them. I think where folks get nervous about going out of office when it's just them and they're in a service-based business is they tell their clients like, hey, I'm taking this time off. And then they just cancel all the retainers, or They canceled the book of business. When I was planning my maternity leave with my hairdresser, she actually had her best income year the year that she took maternity leave because we got really intentional about who we contacted, who we got in pre-maternity leave. We did pre-bookings and deposits for the future. So she had net less cancellations when she came back, the certainty of income. It's just so incredibly structured that your clients are almost feeling that breath of fresh air. Like, cool, she's done all the thinking for me. All I have to do is like pay the $50. Like, I'm
Yes.
good.
And I love all of these ideas, and I really appreciate, thank you for sharing so many different ones, because I know how easy it is to listen to a podcast and think, that's great, but it won't work for me.
Totally.
And so thank you for those examples, because someone as specific as a hairstylist, that's a tough one because you cannot do that virtually.
That's
That
right.
is not a get on Zoom, right? You
Mm-mm.
can't, it's not possible to do that. But maternity leave and a great profit year for her was still possible. And it's all about being creative. And one of the other things that I think can easily creep in with this idea of taking time off, structuring things differently, different offerings, that sort of thing, is raising prices without raising time spent with the person.
Ooh.
That is a big one that I see all the time. And I can catch myself in this, which you've caught me in it too. It's easy, I think, for service providers to get into that slippery slope, but it's so interesting that that's not the truth. There has been 0% of the time for me that has been the truth, but
Yeah.
it still creeps in.
I'm currently redesigning packages with a client of mine who is a coach, and she had this exact same question on our call on Tuesday. And she sent me over her new packages, and she was like, "Allie, I want your feedback." And I noticed that she was doing something very similar. She was adding more hours in the higher ticket package for raising her prices. And I was like, I'm not going to say names just for privacy, but I was like, look,
It could be
we can't
Amanda.
do this.
We can call her Amanda because I have done it before, and you've seen that Google Doc, Allie.
It's funny, but so years ago, we offered one-to-one services, like I told you, for a very long time, done for you services. And I remember sitting down, Lauren, you've met Lauren. She's been with me for 6 years on my
Lauren.
team.
Shout out to Lauren.
Well, hi, Lauren. She's wonderful.
She is.
And I remember I got on a call with her one morning and I was like, hey, we're going to remove all the one-to-one calls with me in this service. I was like, with the exception of the initial strategy, I'll sit down with them and, frame everything out. And she was like, Allie, everybody's going to be so upset. They're like, I remember her fear. Like, she was just very, very scared. And so you might be feeling like Lauren right now if you're thinking about doing this. And what happened, I'm going to tell you the end, then I'll tell you how we got there. In the end, so we do a lot of measuring and did in our one-to-one work, we had 100% retention the quarter that I removed all my one-on-one calls.
Oh my gosh.
In
That's
like an
amazing.
8K a month package. Like, it was wild. And what I need to say about this is I had this gut instinct, and it's been one that's guided me through creating like lots of processes and systems for how to approach this in the recent years. But what happened was we get on calls, frequent calls, right, with people. And what ends up happening, especially as like a strategist, like my lead reason for being there was to help develop strategy. And because we were doing weekly, some bi-weekly calls with our customers, they would basically pick my brain about other things in the business or the strategy that we'd originally set out. And my argument for removing the calls was, we don't need to reinvent the wheel on strategy. We just need to set them up and knock them down. So why do we need to get on another call if you need a call? So here's what I did that I thought was really interesting. Instead of doing hour-long bi-weekly or half an hour-long weekly calls, I removed those from the calendar. I beefed up the strategic portion. So I put in more processes, more clarity, more time from me really getting to the root of their challenges, fully fleshing and developing out an initial strategy with them. And they loved that. I created it as a part of our 4-phase framework. Like, it's very, very, very clear the deliverables around that. And then I made calls unlimited. For 15. So if my clients wanted to ask me a specific question that they felt like they couldn't send me on email or Voxer or whatever, they could do that. And they could book a 15-minute session with me within 24 hours. So like 24 business hours, they could book with me. But it was a 15-minute link. They had to tell me the one thing they wanted to chat about, not 50 things. And then they could book with me. Let me tell you, Amanda, I can happily say that I probably did 7 of those calls, total.
I was thinking you probably did not very many.
No. And you know why? It's because there weren't very many specific questions that came up that couldn't be answered in email or like in their strategy document in Google Comments and things like that. So my thought is like when you're thinking about the value that you provide to your customer, right? Rooting it in some sort of process and a very, very clear strategy is the name of the game. And then you can turn to something like Voxer. For example, this might not work. I know maybe some of our therapists on the call are like, wait a second, people need to unpack their feelings. My like therapist for my business and my life, like it's high performance stuff. It's like, lots and lots of different team decisions. It's big business decisions. It's those types of things. We literally did like a, hey, Allie, where do you want to go this year type of call. And we've been working with each other for over a year, but like this is the typical kind of framework. It's where do we want to go this year? Where do we feel like we're challenged by? What do we feel like we've learned in the last year? Like what's in our toolbox now that might not have been in previous years? And then we're on Voxer. And that's it. And I can come in and drop my feelings or present my challenges or whatever. And it feels like I have a person on for me 24/7. And then she can come in and answer the questions that I have and those types of things. And honestly, I have never gotten more value from a professional relationship than I have from this sort of format and setup. So even if you're coaching, even if you're doing those types of things, if you have a team or you're doing one-on-one deliverables, you can always, have some shifted responsibilities and reason to knock that out of the park and delegate some things to some folks. But it doesn't necessarily need to mean more time with you. I think at the end of the day, what most of us are paying for is certainty and outcomes. That's it, right? They want to know for sure that they trust somebody who's going to do the things that they say they're going to do. And they want the outcome, right? They want the thing that they're paying for. And that's pretty much it. It's not like, how do I put this? It's not super complicated. I don't think anyone cares that you've been chained to your desk for 13 hours of the day. They just care that the thing is done and that it's done well. And you did the thing you said you were going to do.
Amen, sister. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Speaking from the accountability coach over here, just do what you said you were going to do, right?
That's right.
That should be my tagline for everything is just do what you said you were going to do. And you're totally right. I swear every time I remove something, and I will get questions like, well, can I meet?
Sure.
Can I meet more? Or can I do? And I will, but I respond and I say, this is what I know works. And this is how I approach this. And it's that certainty that you just mentioned. It's when I come to the table and I say, I am certain that this process works. And this is why. And this is the experience I've had. And there's no wavering whatsoever. And that is something that I think obviously comes with experience of knowing and trusting yourself. But even early on, I think you can come to the table with like a little bit of fake it till you make it with that confidence of like, this is what I believe works. And when you're certain and when you have a process, like you're talking about, when you have these two things together, that really is communicated well on the other side and the person trusts you and is like, okay, I'm going to go for this. And then they get the outcome. So it's putting all these things together. And that's the value. It doesn't need more time for sure.
Yeah. The process creates certainty for sure. And it creates confidence on your side, right? Because if you're feeling like, okay, I need to raise my prices or I want to raise my prices and I don't know how to position this to my clients, the very first thing I would personally do is create a client journey. And it doesn't need to be wild. It can be 3 phases, 4 phases, 6 phases, whatever that situation is. But think about all of the challenges that your clients are experiencing along the way and just be one step ahead of them. That will upgrade your services so tremendously because not very many people in business ownership are willing to do that type of work. It's unsexy. It's very behind the scenes. I'm serious. I think so many folks are like really excited about growing their YouTube channel, but then like they're hemorrhaging customers behind the scenes. And so I'll never understand those people. If you're listening to this and you are in that case, no judgment here. Just consider this an invitation to like maybe shift and like think about the way that we're performing behind the scenes because I think so many business owners are in service of what things look like on the outside. And I mean, we've been sort of circling around this most of our conversation, right? Instead of chasing like someone else's business model, instead of chasing like other external things inside of the business, like really getting clear on like who you want to be in your business, how you want to feel, what value you actually do bring to the table for your clients and being able to put some kind of process around that, that'll give you kind of the freedom to raise your prices when you want to raise your prices, to hire a team when you want to hire a team, to take time off when you want to take time off. And those are the things that even the people with multi 8-figure companies and gigantic teams have trouble with. I know because I've coached them.
You have. You've worked with some amazing people. And I think it's so interesting to hear that. And I hope that that gives a breath of fresh air to the people listening of like, they struggle with that too.
Yes.
Because if it's not a problem right now, it's going to be a problem. And if it's
a heavier
already a problem, it's going to be a worse problem if you don't address it. And so I love what you said. And you know, on this podcast, we like to give everyone a next step. And you really just did that of like, you said we're circling around this concept of really getting clear of who you want to be in your business, how you want to feel, and what you want to deliver. And that value, and then it positions you to make any of the pivots that come along. Because we've talked about that from both our sides of like, we both wrote books and I changed my business and you changed your business. But I believe if we really boiled it down, the reason that we're still doing this thing as entrepreneurs versus like throwing in the towel or whatever, yes, we have support. Yes, we have all these other things like experience and stuff, but it's also, we know what we want. We know how we want to feel. And we're working those processes in the background, which is super unsexy and not the like, my Instagram is so high and all this stuff. It's like, that's not the focus when you know the back end.
I've known plenty of people with small Instagram followings who have wildly profitable and really cozy businesses. Like it's not pulling the life out of them. They're able to be with their kids. I mean, you can go check me out on Instagram. I don't have a massive following. I've been behind the scenes of some major businesses. And I think at the end of the day, we want to make sure that it all feels really good and that we're doing the things that we're really excited about. Because if you're not passionate about the thing you're delivering, it's palpable. You can feel it. All of us have worked with a service provider who's just like over the moon excited about the thing that they do. And I think it's tough sometimes because especially if we're in service of, income, right? Like I'm going to just acknowledge this. Like I have been in a position in my business and my family where I'm like, cool, I need to earn. And so here are the types of projects I need to take on. And so acknowledging that you're doing that for a reason, you're doing that for a season is totally fine. But I think being in a position where you're moving toward the type of work that you want to do long term, everyone who experiences that deliverable from you is going to be like, whoa, Allie really cares about this. And you see her light up when she talks about these particular things. And that type of stuff is what is going to get you into those higher categories of paid for your coaching, for your deliverables, those types of things. People want to feel like you're excited, like you're a partner, like you're going to really leave it all out on the field for them.
Love that. And I can truly, truly say that that's what you've done. It has been so fun to witness and be your friend and be in our Voxer chat and see how Master Maternity Leave went from, I've got this idea to what it is today, which is amazing. And I'd love for you to tell everyone where they can learn more about you and any last minute nuggets of wisdom you'd like to share as well, because I know people are going to want to connect with you and learn more from you and just see what you're up to.
Yeah, of course. I do want to say, they say Rome isn't built in a day, and I have nothing near Rome with Master Maternity Leave, I'll say. But
I think it's just as beautiful as Rome, okay?
It's very pretty, I will say. We did a really good job and my team is so amazing. But what I will say is what you want doesn't, come without challenges or setbacks or things in the road that maybe you didn't think that you'll need to spend some time to clear, both personally, right? Stuff that comes up for you and also stuff that comes up in your business. So just know that if you are building in that direction and maybe you're here at the end of the year and you're like, oh man, I didn't make as much progress as I thought this year, or things didn't go the way that maybe I'd hoped, know that you're still on the path that's in service to the thing that you really want, which is hard work. Again, things that people aren't often willing to do, right? More often than not, we're just willing to just kind of keep going status quo. It takes a lot to change a direction. It takes a lot to, pour a concrete, thick foundation into your business so that you don't have to work nights and you don't have to work weekends and you don't feel really frazzled. So this is really, really important work. My little plug, so you can find me at AlysonCaffrey.com. That's my personal brand, is where I do all my systems work. There's a really great free handbook on that site. It's 37 pages. I wrote every single word. And it's literally, if you were to hire me to get you out of the weeds of your business quickly, if you didn't want to invest the time and the support, which only takes a few more hours, by the way, my book is very short. It's called The Sabbatical Method, but you can find on Amazon. But my handbook is really great. It's like the distillation down of all the things, and you can totally upload it to your chat too and be like, coach me like Allie and tell me all the stuff to do.
I love that idea. I'm definitely going to do that because the handbook is great. I'm going to give it a plug for sure. It is super great.
Yeah, it's really, really wonderful. And of course, if you're planning maternity leave and running a business, whether you're by yourself or you do have a team, and you want to be able to press pause and bond with your kiddo, that is honestly my specialty. It's where the massive majority of my heart lies in terms of supporting women through this experience. Most don't feel like they can even take one. Most feel like if they do take one, their entire business is going to come crumbling down. And I'm here to tell you that it doesn't need to be like that. And we have ways. So you can find me at Master Maternity Leave on Instagram. Say hey. I answer all my DMs, and you can ask me anything about your maternity leave, your specific process, where you are in the planning, and I'll plug you with the resource.
It's so great. You have so many great resources, no matter which side they go to, on the operation side or master maternity leave. And it's so beautiful what you've created. And friend, thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And I'm glad everyone got to hear a little bit of one of our Voxer chats.
Thanks, Amanda. I had a blast. I appreciate you having me.
Anytime. You are welcome back anytime. So, you listening, it's time. It's time to think about what you want to do and who you want to be in your business and how you want to feel along that journey and the systems and processes that will help you get there. And I'll say, since I know some of you on the other end are not necessarily lovers of systems and processes, but I tell you, these systems and processes work. And creating them is going to help you deliver in a more easeful way, which I know is what everyone wants on the other side. So make sure to take some time to do that as you were reflecting on this year or this quarter, whenever you're listening to this, and make those decisions so you can move forward with confidence and raise your prices. We'll just go ahead and say that. Maybe raise your prices and change your offerings, all those good things, but have fun while you're doing it. And until next time, I'll see you soon.